Hi everyone, welcome back in studio on the Bison Video Blog. Along with Jeff Kolpack, I'm Don Izzo. 2 days removed from NDSU's biggest win in school history. Now they're dealing with one of its most difficult losses. We just came back from Chris Kleiman's press conference and find out the news that star middle linebacker Nick DeLuca will have season-ending surgery later this week. And his status now obviously goes up in the air if the NCAA will clear him to use a medical red shirt. Obviously, DeLuca played as a true freshman, so he is eligible to come back if the NCAA grants that for 2017. The timeline, Jeffrey, is 4 to 6 months on this recovery on a torn labrum. Let's first start with the injury itself. We had heard the whispers of this, I think, for a couple of weeks about maybe this was a possibility. Your initial reaction?
We heard it from every gas station between here and Iowa City, I swear, and then all points in Iowa City that it's going to be it's a tough deal, obviously, but it's happened before. You go back to Grant Olson, you go back to Travis Beck, you go back to, they've lost a key player. It seems like every year except for 2011, and there was the injury there. Obviously, it's severely limited his ability to play the rest of the year. And they'll have Matt Plank. He's the guy. Now they figured out how to replace guys before, and so we'll see if they can do it again.
You go back. We start first with Colton Heagle and Levon Perry in 2012, Grant Olson 2013, Travis Beck 2014. Granted, that was late in the season, but still during the playoff run. Last year was Carson Wentz, and now they have to deal with this. This also bears repeating. He won Player of the Week honors last week, 14 tackles and a pick six, and how great he was against Eastern Washington on one shoulder. I mean, he was fabulous in that game against Eastern.
On a torn labrum, which is a pretty painful injury. Those of us that, don't play the game and haven't had that, but I can just imagine how, getting back is so tough. But it's early in the year, and here's the thing. They have a bye week to figure it out, and I think that's a big deal because it's not like this sudden news put on Matt Plank that he has to, regain, has to be this all-American linebacker, and that's a thing. And I think Chris Kleiman alluded to in the press conference earlier today that, it's just not Matt Plank who's taken over. It's just like when Carson went out, the offensive line had to get better, the running backs had to run harder, and the receivers had to play better. And I think you'll have to see the same thing in this case where defensive linemen will have to play a little better. MJ Stumpf and PRG Tucker will maybe have to pick it up a little bit. And then also the defensive secondary will have to up their game. So it's just not Matt Plank, I think, who has to bear the whole weight of this.
Do you think that Kleiman and his defensive staff may move Tucker or Stumpf to that middle spot?
I don't think they're big enough. Because when they moved Carlton Littlejohn, he was, 222 pounds, and he just seemed like he could probably fit a little more physical linebacker. MJ is a fast guy. He's 6'2". He's big enough. I don't know if he's heavy enough. And PRG Tucker, again,
he flies on that outside.
Yeah, I just don't think he's physical enough to play in the middle.
So Matt Plank now would be the presumptive guy to take over at that middle linebacker spot, and he struggled, admittedly so to us, that first play we saw when Mike Holloway's touchdown run for Charleston Southern. After that, he was really, really good, I thought, especially in the second half, and in overtime made a big stop against Charleston Southern.
You're not seeing some true freshman coming in the mix here.
He's a fourth-year guy.
He's a fourth year, so he's had 4 years of really getting into this system and developing into the Tampa 2 linebacker. Now, doesn't probably move as well as DeLuca. I don't know who does. and that linebacker spot, you have to have somebody that can move pretty well.
You also look at the guys behind him. This is an area we've hammered on during the offseason. We had DeLuca ranked so highly on our list of guys to watch or can't afford to lose guys. We had DeLuca up there. I believe it was number 2 or number 1 on our list of can't afford to lose players that we did during the summer. So this is obviously a massive loss for NDSU because I think the guys behind him we just don't know about yet. Chris Board is starting to get a few more reps in there. Dan Marlette has not really played a whole lot in terms of quality reps outside of mop-up duty. Levi Jordime's been hurt as well. That's why this spot, we had it rated so high in our offseason list.
Well, again, they have 2 weeks to figure it out before Illinois State, so it's not like you have 4 days and then all of a sudden here come the Redbirds. This is no surprise, I don't think, because there's been whispers.
The whispers have been out
2 weeks, correct?
I heard it right after the Charleston Southern game that possibly this was something that was going to be talked about. Now, for DeLuca himself, Chris Kleiman says 4 to 6 months. So if we go 4 months from right now, that's January. And if anything we found out during last year's process, that is the prime evaluating time for the NFL scouts leading up to the draft. Obviously, you have all the Senior Bowls, all the All-Star games then. February is 5 months. That's the combine. And then obviously 6 months, you're into March, into Pro Day. This all, to me, seems like he'll come back for 2017.
I asked the head coach if he worried about if he thought about if Kleiman or if DeLuca is going to go pro or think about going pro, and he said that as much. He goes, well, the rehab time is it's really extensive, and that's a shoulder injury too. I mean, you just don't. I don't think go right back into the lineup in full speed. So I'm looking at maybe for sure, certainly that he would come back for next year. You'd get better money, right? If you come back
That's
for a full
the thing.
season.
If the NFL scouts already know he's hurt, and if they're not sure he's 100%,
they're not going to spend a third-round pick
your
on
draft status, I believe, would go down. And he's already up, like you mentioned, I think a third-round guy, some early projections I've seen on that if he's fully healthy, has a great 2017, he can only improve his stats. Now, granted, there's always the possibility to get hurt again, but I think that the prudent thing here would for him to come back and play in 2017.
Absolutely. And again, Travis Beck, I thought, was on track to be an NFL linebacker, and he got hurt, just never got his chance. Same with Cole Jerk. He got hurt, never had his chance. So I think if you have the surgery now, you come back full go next year and have a good year. You go into those all-star games. You go into those combines, pro day.
All the interviews,
Absolutely.
Right? Well, this news is swallowed up, obviously, what's happened nationally, Kolpack. North Dakota State is the darling of the national media. I draw a very similar comparison. I asked Kleiman about this to when Saul Phillips and the Bison men's basketball team beat Oklahoma in the first round of the NCAA tournament. The amount of exposure it's not to the level of what Wentz mania was during February, March, and April earlier this year. But it's pretty good over the last 48 hours.
I go back to Tim Miles and the basketball team beating Wisconsin in 2006, I believe, which that was an 11 a.m. Did I not say those 11 a.m. games are
very prescient mind you are.
Just something different about those. I wish I would have took my own advice on that. But I just it's a national story, and now the 6 in a row has just become mind-boggling statistic.
Later this week, I have a blog post on the available teams that are still out there for 2018. None of those teams are going to be calling NDSU back. There are some really intriguing teams out there. I'm just talking Power 5. I didn't do any of the Group of 5 schools. I just don't imagine that the NDSU would get a game with any of those teams right now. I don't think that's going to happen.
This game, with the Iowa game, was scheduled in 2011, and that was after the first national title. Now they've won 5, and now they've won 6 straight against FBS, or 9-3 against FBS. You're right. The 701 area code is going to go unreturned.
I think 2020, there's still obviously an opportunity for 2019 because that's a 12-game season. Don't know about that either, but the win on Saturday for some long-term ramifications for what happened. The guys that didn't make the trip, Kolpack, to Iowa City would be seniors for that 2020 game at Oregon. That might be the next FBS game.
So this true freshman.
The guys that are sitting out right now will be seniors come 2020 and have a shot maybe for the next FBS game. That's kind of how things sit right now.
Boy, it's hard to think about that far out, isn't it?
That's kind of the deal right now. We got to get ready for a big week it's a bye week for NDSU, but there are a few games going on that concern Missouri Valley opponents, including the opener for NDSU's next opponent. Illinois State plays at Indiana State as they get the conference season underway because they have a bye week to end the year. Worth noting, too, Illinois State playing back-to-back roadies. Starts at Terre Haute, then comes to Fargo, and they're off a loss to Eastern Illinois.
And NDSU, even back when you go back to Craig Bowl, has been pretty good after the bye week.
Yeah, they've been really, really good with that. Western Illinois, the other Valley team in action, as they will take on Northwestern. There's another shot there. Northern Illinois, that's the team they're going to get. So another chance. We'll see what happens there with the FBS-FCS matchup. So we'll continue to have updates on the Nick DeLuca storyline and get you ready for our second bye week of September before the Missouri Valley play begins in October. For Jeff Kolpack, I'm Dom Izzo. That's the latest Bison Video Blog.